We'll now like to call on the next speaker, Musab Khamis Almuniri, the CEO of Boat LLC, who will also be speaking about what makes open data good data.
Assalamu alaikum. I will keep the speech free, so I don't have any slides. I will come with ideas. I will talk about my experience on the data and open data, and I will highlight some points. First of all, I'm specialized on data. I'm a data scientist. I did my master's degree and PhD on that one also. So I'm interested on this area. I want to see the data because I can feel something with the data that give me a decision, a right decision, not the normal decision as we used to do. Just jump on decision, and it is right. If it's right, it will come up, and if it's wrong, it will come up. So I want to talk today what makes open data a good data. I will start with the basic things. What makes data is a good data also. So once we started with this point, each data, it's called data, but can we get something out of it or not? If we can get something out of it, it's a good data. If we cannot, I cannot say it is rubbish data, but it cannot be used. It cannot be used for something in the future. So I believe taking care of the data before starting opening the data is the point here. I will talk about one thing. Most of the data, or what we have nowadays, it's just insights. It's just an outcome of a data. We cannot see the real data. We cannot see the origin of the data. So that's why we cannot deal with it. If I'm getting a percentage out of data, what I will do with that percentage? I cannot do anything. I cannot do any further analytics on that data. Just I will look to this insights, this percentage. I will cut it from somewhere or copy it from somewhere and paste it somewhere else. I will not do anything else. This is the point. But if I have the origin of that data, I will get to something else. I will get to another assumption. I will think in different way. Every and each one who is interested in data, he's thinking in different way. He's digging on that data to get out of it something, to get a decision, to get whatever he wants to get out of this data. So the point here, if that data is not clear enough for me, or it is only a general data, I will not do anything out of it. Once we talk about the data itself, here in Oman, we started already opening some data. But if we go back on the origin of that data, we will see that only it is a general data. How? There is no research before collecting the data. What I will do with the normal data? Okay, if we take an example, we have the Ministry of Education. They can collect the normal data and they can go for deep data, which can be used for the future also. Usually, you will see that the student have their name, ID, the age, whatever basic information they have only. But they are not asking them about more deep in their social life. If their parents divorced, why is that? Because that can affect their study life. So this is part of it. This is based on research. We need to research. We need to do more digging on the data so we can collect the right data. I'm not here to collect only the data. I can harvest the data out of the internet. I can harvest the data out of any server, but is that usable or not? If it's not the right properties for the data, it's not the right variables of those data, there is no point to collect it. It will be ended as a rubbish data. It will not be ended as a good data. So this is the point. We need to collect the right data. We need to do a research before starting collecting this data, because usually the data scientists, there are two types of data scientists who are starting digging with the data to reach somewhere, or thinking about a path and they are trying to follow that path with data analysis. Then they will make sure if they are right or wrong, and they will start again from the zero. So once we started with the research, we will come to the point that our data is a good data. Then we can start opening that data. There's no point to open the data at the first stage. We need to collect more data. We need to go deep for those data. Then I will talk about why the open data, what makes that open data also good. It's not only coming from one place. If we talk about, we want to solve one of the problems, which is in Oman today. We want to get jobs for those job seekers. What we will do? Only we will think about the jobs. We will think about the companies, the government sector, to get more jobs for them, more opportunities. No, we have to start from the early stage. We have to link this data. If I have an open data for the Ministry of Labor, there's no point. I need at least two more data, which is Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education also. So I can plan early. If we go 10 years back and we plan for today, we will get more jobs. We will get more like companies. We will get more opportunities for those people. But we didn't start early. We started with the only general data. I got some data from Ministry of Education, Ministry of Higher Education, and Ministry of Labor, but I cannot deal with it. I have to link those. Once I will push the student on the early stage in Ministry of Education to go in different path than the normal path. Then in the higher education, I will get more measures related to the needs of the market, not the needs of the market as today, the needs of the market as a future, because we can get that out of our data also. So once we reach to the Ministry of Labor, they will get easy to address where is the opportunities, what kind of measures, what kind of jobs is accepted on the market. So it is a full circle, started from the early stage till the job or the employment part. So this is the point. We are not talking about only opening the data. We have to link those data. We have to link the people starting searching about the data from Ministry of Education till the other ministries also. Even the private sector have to participate on this thing also. Because if they are not participating, they will not get any use of this data. As today, I'm from private sector. I want to get something out of this data, the opening data or the available data on the market, which I cannot use it. I cannot make a decision out of this data. So there's no point. I have to do my own research. I have to collect my own data, and some of the data collected from my side also, it is assumptions. It's not a real data because I cannot access this data. I know that some data is confidential, but what's the point if this data is confidential and we cannot use it also? It can be used even from the government itself. Okay, if I have this data and it's confidential, I will use it on the right way. I will get insights which can be used for further analytics, for further analysis on this data. So I will not keep this insights as a normal insights. Okay, I can do pie chart, I can do diagrams and other things, but that's a normal thing that have been done for the last 20, 30 years. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go deep on those data. I want to get something out of this data. So The only point here is before opening the data, we have to get a good data. I think for the past 2 days and even today, we're still talking about the data, the big data. I have something which may be different opinion. The big data or the properties of big data, sometimes it is a normal data also. We deal with a lot of kind of data, especially on the medical field. On the medical field, if you deal with the data, you will not get that much of big data, but you have to deal with it. It is a good data because it has multiple variables. Why? Because it is related to something specific. So not only we are looking for a big data, we are looking of a data itself, the good data itself. We started with this point before harvesting the data. Nowadays, I believe that all the government servers have a big data, but it cannot be used, or it is not organized. It is not well done at the first stage because some of this data is missing. And we can see that when you are filling a form, sometimes in applications or whatever, you can skip some of the spaces, some of the boxes. You can skip it. You can put a dash on it. That will affect the future data. That will affect the future data. Why we are accepting this? I know it is not easy for the normal or for the consumer to go through all this data, but we need it for the future of Oman, for the future of the government, for the future of the private sector, for the people in Oman. So it's hard to start with it, but we will get the benefit out of it after years of starting the good point of collecting this data. So it is not only harvesting the data. Nowadays, when I started doing my PhD, I was asking for a data, any kind of data, like a big data. I'm talking about the live stream analytics and other things. So I couldn't get any data, or the areas where I can get big data, they are all of them. They are telling me that it's confidential. We cannot use it. I'm not using it as a private or on a personal purpose. I'm using it in research, and that research will come up with something at the end. So also, are we supporting the researchers? Are we supporting the student who they are will to do this on the open data? All those things, if we think about it, we will come up with a good data, with good open data. But nowadays, it is not. We don't have enough of open data. We don't have enough of data itself. So I believe the main point, we will start with the data, then opening that data. And this is coming from the government as the first place and reaching the private sector. And I believe the private sector is more open about the open data than the government. So we have to change the rules. It's not the rules that is acceptable for nowadays. We have to change it. So we need to change this to come up with something can be used on the future. This open data can be used even for the student in the schools. Nowadays, the student, they are dealing with some of the tools. IBM Watson, they are dealing with Tableau, other tools also. They start to deal with it. It's for data visualization. It's easy thing to deal with it. So why we are not giving them the chance to do it? Let them do that. Let them start with it. They started on early stage. We are creating data analysts. We are creating data scientists. We are creating people. They are will to do something on the future about the data. So I believe opening the data and collecting the good data to be opened to be used for even the private sector or the government, it will be the starting point for our revolution on this field. I believe that was my talk. I hope it was an easy to get for you. And I didn't do any slides because basically I was talking about my thoughts. It was something coming up. I want to talk about it. That's why I prefer to talk about data analytics and machine learning, but the open data is it's more important for me at this stage before starting that stage of data analytics. And thank you.
Yeah. Any questions for Musab?
After the second question, take the mic from me. Thank you very much for your good presentation. However, I'm a bit surprised the way you define and classify data into good data and bad data, or you call it rubbish data. And then you said good data if it has too many features or variables, as you call them, and bad data if it has many missing values. On what basis, you said good data having too many features, although we know in machine learning, normally not all the features are employed because we have something called feature selection, in which you're going to eliminate many of the non-relevant features which will not contribute positively in the prediction. And also regarding the missing values, there is a mechanism to handle these missing values. So why you classify data on that basis?
I think from my perspective regarding the open data and what kind of data is this and how I can define this data, it's different from the data we are getting. So if I'm talking about the variables, why I will use or why I will have many variables on one data or one element of this data, because I can get a lot out of it. I talked previously about the Ministry of Education, the schools, the students. I can collect the normal data. That will be fine for me, and that can help on their career or whatever, on their path, study path. But if I'm getting more data about their social life also, I can help them to improve their self. This is the point about it's not.
No, the point about good and bad. When you say this is bad data,
it's not a bad
because in
data.
reality, we never expect the data to be cleaned and ready to be used. We have to do this pre-processing, data cleansing, and so. But when I see the data, I say, oh, you have a bad data, I want to use it. So I don't know.
Okay, we come to a data which cannot be used sometimes. This is the fact. Some data cannot be used at all. We cannot get anything. There is some data. There is some data cannot
be used because of
the structure of their data, and they have some percentage of missing data. So I cannot get something out of it. So what I can do with that data?
I'll conclude now. Thank you for this point. That's mean you are talking about unreliable data which has too many missing values, blah, blah, blah. Now, the second question, which I'll conclude with, you stated that, you just collect data based on survey, whatever. You haven't talked about historical data. Normally, when it comes to machine learning and big data, we never go and collect data based on survey. We rely on historical data, which can give us a conceptual view about what's going on, and then we can understand either behavior, we can predict medication, depends on what I'm doing exactly. So I haven't heard that you are talking about historical data at all during your presentation.
Yes. I believe what you said is right about the historical data. The historical data is important. I cannot say something different than that, but I'm talking about the future. What data we are collecting now, it is for the future as a history also. So what we didn't do any collecting. If we talk about we will not address any government sector or private sector. But if we didn't collect any data, we have it just on papers as a normal papers. It's not digital data. And it has been there for a full of room of archive paper. So what will we use with that data? What we will do with that data? It's a lot of data, but it cannot be used also. So this is the point, that when we start the right collection of data, we can get something on the future. I'm not talking about today. Okay, what we have today, we can use it, we can deal with it, but also the future is important for us. As a prediction, as analytics, all those things, it's talking about the future. So we have to prepare ourselves for the future also. Thank you.
Musab, I have one question. As the organizer of Comics exhibition, the event has been in Oman for 30 years and the higher education skills employment exhibition for 20 years. Yes, the Ministry of Technology, which used to be ITA, started to get the e-government going. And we started to hear about open data just recently in Oman. I don't have so much knowledge, but thanks to Dr. Riyad, yourself, and Richard to come. And I think this is a very useful session, although it's the last session of the conference. It's a very useful session, but my question is, the biggest problem what we have in Oman, I've stayed 20 years in Oman. So the biggest problem what we have here is unemployment, skill gaps, excessive spending on higher education, maybe not so much spending on technical, vocational, educational skill development. And we have a big gap. We have an oversupply of engineers. I'll just tell you from our example, Amar and myself were recruiting, I think 7 candidates for our organization. We went through we advertised, we had maybe 1,000, 2,000 CVs, all very good CVs, but we chose for sure. But there are so many graduates, engineering degrees in very difficult subjects, applying for common jobs. Why doesn't the government, if they're talking, excuse me, but why doesn't the government, like the higher education ministry, and you picked up something very important, and I want to give you the credit for pinning that, the education ministry, the higher education ministry, the Ministry of Labor saying, oh no, it's your problem, you haven't created jobs, I've created educated graduates, now you see you got an excess supply. Why don't they talk to each other via open data? Stop working in silos, but talk to each other. And or if there is already something which is in existence, why doesn't Dr. Jamil and others work together with you to come up with answers to the problem? Because this is a big problem and it has been there the same way for many years and it's just becoming bigger, right? So is there something there which I'm not aware or the public here can understand better?
I believe everyone is protecting their data. That's
why.
As they said, it's confidential.
But the government is for the public, right?
Yes.
Your public servants, if I'm not.
So if I'm opening the data, the full data from one sector to another sector, they can see our performance also. It will be easier for them to trace our performance because that data cannot lie. So it's all about data. So this is the point. We have to get override of this thing. We have to sit together. Even the private sector have to sit with the government also, just to open this data, to get used of this data, to plan for the future. We are not talking about today or what we done previously. That's what done is done.
For sure, the money's gone under the bridge. For sure, that's done. But what can we do now? Because you brought up something very important, and that's leading into our next event, which is future skills and human resource development and education for employment and all that stuff. What can we do? Academics like Dr. Shakhsi and the others here from Sultan Qaboos University, yourself an enthusiast into open data, Dr. Riyad, what can we do? Can we bring people of common interest together and crack this, that yes, we are willing to share data with the academics because we need to trust the academics here. And can they come up with some algorithms or solutions to solve this problem? Because it's a big problem.
I think they can solve it. Even if we don't want to push this data to the public, but at least we have to get used of it internally and get the decision based on this data.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, there are some questions here. Our speaker, Muralidharan, just give us few minutes, if that's okay with you. We'll just ask 2-3 questions and then we'll come to you. It's very interesting what we're talking here.
Thank you very much for your session. I just wanted to comment on whatever you said. Yes, I agree with you that we are lacking the connection between the ministries or many entities in terms of sharing the information. Because, for example, I did my master's with Dr. Jamil. He was my supervisor. Thank you, Dr. Jamil. And it was about what are the factors that let undergraduate students fall under probation at Sultan Qaboos University. And of course, to study that, it's not only enough to study the factors within the university. It will be, I mean, the study could be more robust if there are more information to be included, such as the social factors, as you mentioned. And for example, some more information from their previous studies, for example, in the higher school, higher education, and how this can prepare them for the marketplace later on. So I think in order to make the open data more, to work on the open data, there should be a law for open data. If that law or regulation is not established in Oman, then nobody will take any action about that, because everybody wanted to protect their data. There is no enforcement from anywhere to open their data. Why shall I make my open data if there is no law to regulate all that? So if there is no law, I don't think this whole will work. That's all from my side. Thank you.
I think there already the laws started, but it is not
Enforced.
It's not fit enough for what we have. So we need to set a law that forces any entity to open their data once it is reaching that level. So we need to set something as a rule that once you have this and this, you have to open your data. There is no point to close your data. This is the point. And I think if we started with this point, we can get a good open data.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I would like to ask one thing, because in our discussions, we were talking about the historical data. Okay. So is historical data relevant now? Because we are in the pandemic for the last 2 years. What we will get from the historical data now?
The data is valuable. So either it is with COVID or without, it is valuable, because the life is changing. The way it's changing, a lot of things come up on this time. So this can be used even in the future. We don't know that, like, this pandemic is for 2 years or whatever, it's not yet finished, but in the future we will get used of this data. We will understand this data. We will understand the situation, so we can plan if something happen on the future based on this data, because it is a real situation. No one can understand this at the beginning, because we started with COVID and we thought that it will be ended within 2-3 months. But see, almost 2 years now and nothing changed. So this is the point. We will use this data. This data is valuable for the last 2 years, for everything, for the private sector, for the government, for everyone, because we saw a lot of changes in this pandemic. We have to use this data.
Thank you so much, Munir. Musab Almuniri, sorry, CEO of Data Boat. It feels like the open data is like a boat in Shaheen with nobody cooperating with you. So thank you so much.